Rebic, Rafa, tira, gol! Raffaele Leao! Oggi segna Leo! La mia giornata è iniziata così! Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher, and I must apologise in advance for my, I don't know what you call it, husky voice. I'm struggling a little bit. I think everyone's getting the seasonal flu. Touch wood, it's not the Rona. I've done my tests, it's not that. So battling on, you know. But I'm joined by Gian. Gian, it's the first time we've had you on in a while. It's a pleasure to have you back.
Yeah, it feels weird to be back on. Just work's been getting in the way. And it's probably the worst week to come back on after what we've just witnessed, but you know.
Yeah, that's true, actually. I feel a bit sorry for you. And you even missed one of the games, so actually you've saved yourself a bit there. And for the first time ever, unprecedented lineup, but we've got Lorenzo on with us. Debut on the podcast. If you haven't already, go and check out some of his features on our website. You'll find them under the features section, funnily enough. Done some fantastic long reads, the most recent of which is sort of a timeline of Pioli's tenure leading up to his renewal and why it was well earned and that kind of stuff. Lorenzo, pleasure to have you.
Yeah, happy to be here, guys. Yeah, thanks for letting me come on, and I'm happy to make my debut, as you said. But not excited to recap a couple of the games, to be honest with you. But here we are. You win some, you lose some.
You do. That seems to be our theme at the moment, apart from when we drew one. So we'll dive straight into it, shall we? We've got a couple of games to recap and a massive game to preview, which comes next Sunday. Bit of a weird one because the game that we've got to recap first is obviously the Liverpool Champions League game, our final group stage game. That feels like it was ages ago now because it was last Tuesday and we're recording this on Monday. And then again, we got to preview, which is on Sunday night. Feels like it's ages away as well. So a bit of a tough one with Udinese. It's still fresh in the memory, but this was it. This was meant to be our big night. I kind of laugh at it now, thinking we've seen the draw today, albeit at the second attempt into the team that have ended up getting Liverpool. But yeah, this was meant to be a special occasion, one of those famous European nights. We left ourselves with a slight opening in terms of getting into the last 16 of the Champions League. We just needed to win and wait for the right result to come from Portugal. And it was after 30 minutes that things were going pretty damn well. You know, we were a goal up thanks to Bakayoko Tomori's close-range finish. But I think, once again, and I said this about the Sassuolo game, and there are other games where it applies too, we kind of fell off the rails a bit, Jan, when we conceded the equalizer so quickly.
Yeah, it's getting a bit annoying now, and it's becoming a regular pattern where Kier said it himself, we need to stop conceding rubbish goals, easy, sloppy mistakes that seem to keep cropping back up, and there is started to get in some worrying signs there now with the team. And I don't know if that's necessarily purely a thing or the amount of rotations we're having to do just because of the amount of injuries we're picking up, or if the players just don't want it. But I think when that first goal went in for Liverpool, the equaliser, I think that's when we kind of knew that it were already game over and there were no coming back from this, because the lads couldn't even put a string of 3 or 4 passes together until 85th minute.
It rocked us a bit because the Sassuolo game, I suppose, was different because we conceded the equaliser, but it was very much like, you know, we go again. We've won every game at home so far this season, barring the Inter game, so there was plenty to suggest that we could go on and win that game still, but we never recovered from that. The Liverpool game was a bit like when Tomori gave us the lead. I think it would be fair to say that it was against the run of play. Liverpool had most of the ball for that opening 28 minutes, I think it was. Then the goal went in, and then when they equalised, it was almost like, well, we didn't even deserve to be winning anyway. And then the fact that we never really hit back in that period up until half-time, and we started the second half slowly. I think it'd be fair to say, Lorenzo, we were pretty comprehensively outplayed. And does it worry you that there were mistakes involved? And does it worry you that it happened against a B team and some kids?
Well, I mean, look, I think I'm going to echo what Gian said just now. There has been a real theme of concentration that it's just non-existent in a lot of phases of play. And as you were saying, you know, it's concerning. The Liverpool team, I don't think it's a massive deal that they were youngsters, to be honest with you. You could say it's embarrassing. A lot of the Prem heads might say, oh, yeah, you know, look at the quality of Serie A and all of this. But, you know, they were charged up. They had nothing to lose. they were in a really, really strong position, and they still had. I mean, the players that were still on the pitch are so far ahead than what we've got at the moment. I just think it's easy to say that, but I think it's just the concentration. I really do. There's something that's happened the last month or so where the players are just making so many mistakes, and Kessie is really, really quite frustrating at the moment. You know, it's just it's something that it is worrying, yeah, we just got to hope that Pioli can stamp it out. But I think there needs to be a change from a tactical point of view, anyway. But it is frustrating at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think there's not much to analyse really on our opening goal. Apart from it was a set-piece routine that we have worked on before. We've seen it, perhaps the best example being the goal against Torino, the one that Giroud scored, where we aim it near post and go for a flick on and hope that it causes some kind of danger. Against Torino, it was Giroud that tapped it in at the far post. This time it was a save that fell to Tomori and Tomori scored. Not too much to say about that. It was nice to go a goal up.
Well, I mean, I think from a UK point of view, I'm sure you, Jan, I was, it was a moment where you're like, oh, come on, Tomori.
Yeah.
From that perspective, I think it was even, and he's so passionate about Milan as well, which is something I think we all can agree that is so nice to see. Someone coming from the Premier League, which is meant to be so esteemed. That was brilliant. But as you were saying, it was against the run of play, and
Then the goal for the equaliser. I don't know where to begin with this. I have about 4 players that I could pick faults with. And I don't like doing this because it seems like a witch hunt. But we need to talk about, because these mistake-laden phases of play are now becoming quite defining for us, it's important that we talk about them. So from Salah's equaliser, it starts with Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain's run, where he receives the ball and Kessie goes out to press him. And he just lets him glide around him. I wouldn't even say he really makes much of an effort at all to recover once he's gone past him, nor does he stick a foot out to try and stop the advancing run. Giving away a free kick in that position might have been dangerous, granted. But at the same time, if the other alternative is for him to have a free shot from 20 yards, you can perhaps judge the situation better. Anyway, the shot gets fired. Salah's taken up a position between Romagnoli and Theo Hernandez. Mike Maignan for me, and people might not like this, I think his rebound control has to be better. His eye line wasn't blocked. The shot was hit pretty much straight at him. It swerved a little bit, but he sort of goes like that and parries it straight into kind of the only dangerous area that there was. But, it's definitely not his major fault for this goal. And then neither Romagnoli nor Theo Hernandez react. They're both sort of caught in no man's land. Salah's, as we know, one of the most instinctive wingers in the world. If there is a sniff of a goal, he will be in the right place at the right time. So the one instruction had to be surely to keep man tight on him and Mane as well. But there he was, finishing to the roof of the net, 1-1. And that was a disappointing goal to concede. Who do you reckon was most to blame?
I've said it in the group chat. I think it's definitely on Theo more than anyone else. I think it's his man. He's coming in from the right wing. Theo's our left back. Yeah, I suppose you could put a bit of the blame on Romagnoli for also not marking him, but for me, it's mainly Theo, and it was off it. The whole game was Theo Hernandez, and I do believe I will cut him a bit of slack because, he had the flu, and you could see that he couldn't even sprint with the ball like he normally does. He wasn't tracking back much. It was just, I think it was a bad call to play him. I know that the other options, Toure, which isn't much better, but you don't risk someone that's not even fully fit, not even well enough to play, because that's what it seemed like.
Yeah, and I want to mention at this point as well, because it's no doubt going to be brought up in questions, Luigi Garlando, who is one of the co-authors of Ibra's new book, and he's quite a in-the-know journalist. He came out and said that Theo's making certain sacrifices to play at the moment. That's what he's just said today. And that to me suggests he's playing with an injury, or he's playing not at full fitness. Now, we know what COVID can do. It can knock players back. I think him and Brahim, it would be fair to say, do not look at top condition, nor do they look anywhere near their best form from what we saw in the early games of the season. And we rely on them quite heavily because we've seen how much our build-up play tends to be left-sided. And when Theo's not on it, and when his decision-making's not there, and when he's not having his usual energetic kind of bursts down the middle, we just have that one less extra attacking weapon. But yeah, in this particular goal, I think someone's got to pick him up. I don't care who it is. Somebody has to pick Salah up on that. And that was disappointing to me. And the other thing that annoyed me as well is that I don't know whether you could perceive it to be a lack of leadership, but once that goal went in, there was nobody who sort of looked around and said, "Come on, let's switch back on after this." The heads dropped a little bit, and I noticed that, and I remember thinking at the time, "That's not a good time to concede. That's going to be a bit of a hammer blow for us." And it proved to be, because I don't think anybody was that surprised either when we conceded the second goal.
Definitely not. I mean, not at that point against Liverpool as well. I mean, the way that they play. I don't know about you guys, but I also probably naively was sitting there really hoping and thought that this was Ibrahimovic's time. I just had a feeling that he would, have the goal or be decisive, at least claw back something. But he was pretty non-existent. Konate really dealt with him extremely well. As all those quotes, as I'm sure you guys have seen. And how praised. I think he asked for his shirt, didn't he, at the end of the game? So, yeah.
I mean, I was impressed with Konate, and what I will say is he would walk into any other Serie A team probably. He's that good, and he's basically playing as a third choice at the moment because of how obviously there's Van Dijk and how highly Klopp rates Matip as his partner. So Konate's been a bit restricted in terms of game time. But I remember saying before the game, Ibra needed to stay on Phillips, and that might seem harsh because Phillips is not a bad defender by any means. However, he was the one who was going to have more problems physically dealing with a man of Ibra's size and the way that he plays, and he never did that. Konate just kept following him all over, and he did his usual thing of trying to drop in a little bit, but the support wasn't there. Looked really quite disjointed, and I did see a few tweets from people after the game suggesting that actually that was the wrong match to start Ibra in. Not that we had a choice, we had to start him. But to play against a team that are so movement-oriented, playing with such a static centre-forward is actually probably playing into their hands a little bit. If you look at the game at Anfield, we had our best spell in the game when Rebic and Leao started to network a little bit more with Brahim and Salamakers down the middle, and the interchanging in the forwards is what caused them all kinds of problems. Konate might not have an easier game than that with respect to Ibra, who got his first Champions League start in a must-win game at the age of 40, and we ran into a team that had won all 5 group games and were full of confidence. And, it's not easy. It just shows the levels, I guess.
Yeah, I think with Ibra, I feel a bit sorry for him in a sense because he got absolutely no service. We didn't really start playing until the 80th minute, and then we had a chance at a goal, the Kessie one and stuff like that. But the whole team, it was just such a horrible performance from back to front. Bar the likes of Romagnoli and Krunich, who I thought were outstanding in that game. Well, the best of a bad bunch, I suppose. But yeah, the whole team from the midfield was dominated, the attack were disjointed, the defence was sloppy, and like we've already said, it's just worrying now the concentration levels within this squad. And I don't know if they're just mentally defeated at the fact that, every week 2 key players are getting injured, and you look round your squad and you're thinking, that's a difference maker, that's a solid centre-back. And you just kind of think, we keep playing, but we're not getting a lucky break here, and it's just bad news after bad news. And I think it's probably just taken a bit of a toll on them, and the weight of the expectation on trying to win the league and qualifying for the next round of the Champions League with such a young squad, it is going to take the toll on them a bit.
And it did. There's no denying that the schedule, I think because of the increase in the number of international breaks, that doesn't help. But the schedule's been really crammed in for December. I think we were at one point looking at 8 games in 22 days, and that is really tough. I might have been 7 in 22, sorry, but that's really tough when there are some crucial games in that stretch as well.
And injuries on top. I mean,
yeah, there's no depth. There was no forward depth, and that's really tough. That's really tough when our game is based on intensity. It's based on pressing, as we know. It's based on countering with speed. And when you can't rotate the wingers, when you can't keep things fresh, it does make things very difficult. We've been battling against a lot of things for a while now. And as Gian says, I think it does take its toll. And I think that the knock on, we'll come into the Udinese game, but I think that the confidence thing is definitely a factor in that too, because the whole media narrative since that Liverpool game has been that Milan's squad showed they weren't at level for the Champions League. That was what everyone took from it. For what it's worth, I think we've learned a lot from the Champions League journey. And yes, you could say there are a couple of incidents along the way, the Atletico Madrid game, the Porto goal that they got in Portugal. You say incidents like that, if they go the other way, maybe our entire Champions League campaign changes. But I think it did show that we don't have the same quality depth as other teams. But if you look at the draw that we got, I don't know if were people really expecting us to finish second? Really?
I said it in pre-season that I don't expect us to get out of the group, and I said I think we'll finish fourth and it'd be a struggle. Mm-hmm. But I think what disappointed me the most was that we led 4 times this campaign.
Yeah.
And
lost 3 of them.
Yeah, we lost 3 of them, which is massive. So it kind of suggests to me that we are up there in terms of quality, but the actual confidence and the mentality, that's not at the Champions League level yet. And I think that's the difference. I think in terms of player quality, we are. If we'd have been handed a much easier group, one of, say, being in that Wolfsburg group or something like that, we'd probably got out of it and we'd be talking totally differently. But when you're against, 3 league winners in Liverpool, Atletico and Porto, it's going to be tough. It was always going to be tough. So I'm not too disheartened now that it's all the dust has settled and things like that. But yeah, we've just got to go again next season.
Are we happy that we finished third and that we finished fourth and not third in the group? We're happy with the. Yeah, I mean, I looked today and I didn't want Europa League football, but then I saw the draw today and I saw that Napoli got Barcelona, Rangers got Dortmund, and there were some prestigious teams in there that could have been showpiece kind of games for us, but at the same time. As we've mentioned on this pod several times, it would have taken 9 games more if we got to the final. And that's a tough ask. It's a really tough ask. And if you're not going to win it, there's no point being in it. That's the way that...
I always feel like, as a Milan fan, you should always want to win every competition that you're in. And you look at Inter, the year before they won the Scudetto, they went to the final of the Europa League, and I think we've got a team capable of doing that. I can't imagine this injury run going on far into the new year, because that'd just be ludicrous. It would have been nice to still be in Europe and have another crack at a trophy, but it is what it is. That for me now, there's no excuse not to win the league, and I genuinely believe that no matter how good Inter are or Atalanta being hot on the tails, Napoli's still there. There's no excuse for us not to go and win that league now. Even with the injuries that we've got, we can still field one of the best 11s in Serie A. With the injuries, so once everyone's fully fit and Ibra getting a week's rest, Giroud's getting a week rest, Leao, all these type of players, there's no excuse now for us, in my honest opinion, and I'll be very disappointed if we don't win the league.
We've just got to battle through, haven't we, until the start of 2022, and that's when we get Rebic back and we get hopefully a fully fit Leao, and we get.
You miss that man so much. Oh my god,
we do.
This massive miss. Oh my god.
Yeah, people have criticised his performances overall, but he's the Iceman. He pops up with composure when needed, and he offers a lot more than people perhaps appreciated until he was gone, until we missed him for this recent period. And it's going to be massive having him back at the start of January, definitely, because our first game back after the break is Roma, and it's still always a tough game, no matter who's in charge and what kind of run they've been on. Injuries, big factor, obviously. I think just reflecting on the Champions League campaign, I don't know about you boys, but I think that the 2 games that taught us the most were probably the games against Porto, because if prior to a ball being kicked, people were thinking the Porto games were the games that we could target for maybe 4 points or even 2 wins. We were very quickly put in our place by a team that are an experienced Champions League outfit with a good coach, with good young players, with a game plan. It was there that we realised that, let's say, there's only a select few teams in Serie A that press hard and play with intensity, and we might have been expecting Porto to play a bit more rigid than what they did, and the same for Atletico Madrid. But we were given the runaround twice by Porto.
Yeah, I just want to chime in here quick. I think tactically, those two games definitely taught us the most. They were beatable teams. We did not play very well at all. But I think from a mentality and concentration point of view, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on the specifics, but I'm pretty sure the Atletico game, from that game onwards, was when we started to see a pattern of some lapse of concentration. And I truly do not believe that the players got through losing that game. The first Atletico game, I think we were so, even at the Anfield game, we lost. We were outplayed really in terms of chances, but we were in it and we did not give up into the final whistle. Atletico game, that was taken away from us really. I just think from that point on, that really showed our, immaturity in terms of a mentality point of view with the youth, of the players. So I would say a combination of the tactical from a Porto point of view and the sort of winning mentality that we talked about from obviously the first Atletico game. So important.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. Before the recent bad set of results, I think I put in the SempreMilan group chat, it might have been on Twitter, I can't remember which one, but I actually said that we're going to find it hard shortly with these performances because we're poor, but we're winning. And there's only so long that you can be poor and still get results for. And then obviously the injuries heaped on top of it. But I would say roughly it was about the time of the Atletico game where we did lose our lapse in concentration. And yeah, I think that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back in a way, I suppose you could say, because we were in it in the Liverpool game despite being battered. Like you said, we gave it our all, and then to lose like that on your first home night back in the Champions League, that's going to hurt. And then it wore a bit downhill from there, really. We haven't seen many convincing performances this season. We've done the good comebacks and, we've got a couple of wins, but I wouldn't say we've been overly convincing at all. Yeah. And that could be seen as a positive because that will come back and when the players come back and stuff like that. But something needs to change in terms of mentality, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a couple of minutes ago that you think that there's no excuse for not going on and winning the league now, despite the fact that we've not really won pretty at all yet this season, apart from a couple of games earlier in the season. Is that because you reckon we've got another gear to go into if we need it?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's definitely there, and I think a couple of additions will help that. But I think it's just more to get the continuity in the starting 11 and actually have one strong starting 11 that with the depth on the bench that you can bring different subs on, because at the minute it's so limited in who we can bring on. It feels like the same repetitive substitutions, but in reality, that's all that's really available at the minute, just due to the injuries. And I think once that 11 is fully fit, and you've got Rebic up top causing havoc, a fully fit Leao, Kessie hopefully back in form, Tonali partnering him, just the whole side, I think will step up another gear or two once everyone's back fixed. It must take its toll, like not just using injuries as an excuse, but it must be deflating every day going in thinking, is one of my teammates all right? Who's getting injured today? It's kind of like it can't be good from a mentality point of view anyway.
Yeah, it's tough. I just think that day before the Liverpool game as well, like all the lads showing up and seeing Teo training alone in the gym because he's coughing his guts up because he's got flu. You're thinking, when is our fucking luck going to change, man?
Yeah.
That's really tough. Just a couple of things to wrap up on the Liverpool game. We better do top and flop from the match to be consistent. It's a tough one to pick top, let's be honest. I mean, there were a couple of players who, as Gian mentioned, were the best of a bad bunch. The Liverpool's starting front three is still a very, very good front three. Divock Origi is the magic man for them at the moment. We know what Mane and Salah can do. I think Romagnoli had a good game, and I think he was the standout from the back line. But I've got a feeling someone else is going to pick him, and I like to be a bit different. So I'm going to go with Krunich because I thought that, people might not like this because it's kind of all he offered to an extent, but I thought that his work rate, his coverage were outstanding. He puts everything. He really does make the shirt sweat. It's something that we should appreciate, especially in games like this where the extra yards count so much. Wasn't able to sort of crown the performance with a goal or an assist, but I think that he was probably the best out of the attacking players. So I'll give him the nod, but really it was sort of 6 out of 10 performance.
For me, it's Romagnoli hands down. I thought for all the stick that he gets when he makes a mistake, he should really be praised for when he has a good game, and I thought he was outstanding in that game. It's never easy when you're coming up against Origi, Salah, Mane, some of the best defenders struggle, and for someone that's our third choice now and does get all the stick, forget about him being AC Milan's captain and stuff like that. He just gave a really good game, I thought, and the positive thing is, from a bad situation in Kjaer's injury, hopefully he gets enough minutes now to cement back that first place and even get to where he was a couple of years ago, not improve massively, but just to be a solid starting centre-back for at least till the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was gonna say Krunich myself, just because as Ollie said, he was everywhere, and I think to be honest, other than maybe Theo and Ibrahimovic, I think he's really one of our most physical players. He really has a lot to offer, and that obviously was very good against Liverpool. But actually, I'm going to have to agree with Gian. I think it was Romagnoli, and he doesn't get enough praise, as you already said. And I think we actually have a player in there that we're actually quite lucky. He's in his sort of prime years. Really, even you could argue a couple of years away as a centre back away from that, especially in the Serie A. And he's Italian national. I think he does get a lot of stick. Okay, he's not the most mobile, but he's a good centre back, and I think he should get more praise, especially dealing with such a dynamic and explosive attacking force that Liverpool have, to be honest. So I would also go with Romagnoli.
There's definitely all the ingredients there for Tomori and Romagnoli to be a really good pairing. One being right-footed, one being left-footed, one being more positioning based, the other having recovery pace. Like, they could complement each other really well. So we're going to see it for the next few games leading into January anyway.
Just to pick himself up after that disaster against Sassuolo where he got the red card and he got flattened by Berardi on the turn, just to pick yourself up and dust yourself off from that in such a big game and come back and be like, no, hang on a minute, this is Milan, I need to up my game. And he came in, and to be fair to him, he did just that, so I hope it carries on for him.
Yeah, and flop. People might not like this. But I'm guessing someone's going to go with Theo, and I like to be different. I'm going to say this was not Maignan best game at all. The first goal rebound control was poor, as I've mentioned. I think you parry that anywhere but into the path of Mo Salah, and we avoid conceding there. The second goal, I've seen people praising him for going at it with a one-handed punch. That wouldn't be taught in goalkeeping school, I don't think. You would always be taught to get two hands behind it, because again, there was no rebound control, and it ended up landing on the head of Divock Origi, and that's the one person that you don't want inside the box with a free header. One thing I will say is Kessie lost his man for the first goal, got dribbled around by Ox, and he also was the man who tracked back but failed to pick up Origi for the header for the second goal, so you can point fingers at him. And as I say, I think Theo had a poor game. You can even say Ibra was quite static and didn't get involved enough for, again, he was hyping up. But I'm going to go with Maignan and say that we just need to see a little bit more from him.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I thought it was poor from someone that we expect so much from. That second goal, the only thing I could think of, he was just scared of putting his bad hand behind it, because I believe it was his bad hand that he kept down. Yeah. But to slap at it, you either turn it around for a corner or over the bar at the very least. You do not slap it into the... I just can't figure out what he thought was going to come from that there. And not only...
After the first goal, surely you'd be scared to do the same thing again.
Yeah, I've already said to you that I don't hold him accountable to the first goal as much as I do the second, but even his distribution in that game was poor. From what we saw at the start of the season, setting Leao straight off, Theo straight off, on the counter, his whole distribution was just poor against Liverpool. But it wasn't just him; it was throughout the whole side. Everything was just poor. But I guess he was the worst of the guys. He effectively cost us both goals.
I'll just be quick. I think, again, just for the purpose of being diverse, I do think Maignan probably was the worst, but I'm going to pick someone who I don't think has been spoken about that much, and I think highlighted a lot of his weaknesses. I think it was Brahim Diaz. I didn't think he offered anything really. Again, I agree with what we said earlier. I think him and Theo, who was also very poor, I think have been severely affected with COVID and other stuff going on. But it really highlighted that if he doesn't get his technical side of his game perfect, he can get bullied like really easily. He can get out muscled, out present, everything. And yeah, I just don't think he really offered anything a number 10 should in that game. But
yeah,
yeah,
he's struggling. I mean, in his first 9 appearances of the season, he got 4 goals and 2 assists, and 3 of those goals were match winners. And then in his most recent 9 games, he's got no goals and 2 assists. So there's been a slowdown without a doubt, and that's the split since he had before and after COVID. And I've said so many times, as Gian will recall, that COVID is not a 10-day absence. It's not until you test negative. If you've got it and you struggle with the symptoms, which some players seem to be doing, you're a month, because it takes you out of training for 2 weeks and then you've lost your rhythm. You can run about in your house all you want, but it's not the same.
It's not match fitness.
It's not, yeah, exactly. And it's sharpness mentally as well. And we're seeing that. Players are essentially missing a month, or when they come back, they're not right. And they're still not right, either of them. And another guy who's, we will come on to him probably a bit more in the next game, but Benacer's struggling since he came back as well, just generally from injury. And it just, we're not getting those players back up to the kind of levels that we expect. And that is hurting us a little bit. Yeah, that's it. Champions League over. I guess the positive to end on is that we're a year wiser for it. We're 6 games more experienced for it.
50 million euro richer as well.
That's nice, as long as we spend it.
Yeah.
And hopefully, as long as we don't collapse in the league, we'll be back next year and we'll give it a better go, hopefully with an easier group. But for a lot of players, the vast majority of our squad, with the exception of a few, this was their first experience of Champions League football. And when your first experience is Liverpool away at Anfield, as much as I dislike them as a club and don't want to hype them up too much, that is a baptism of fire, and we'll see what next year brings, won't we? And also to our cousins Inter is best of luck with that.
I hope they get 5-0. I really do. I really do.
I hope they play the B team in the second leg or something like that. Just to, so Sunday we played, Saturday night, wasn't it? Sorry, that we played Udinese away from home at the Dacia Arena. Now, I didn't mention this on the preview podcast, which I should have done. We'd only won 3 of our previous 9 visits to play Udinese away. It has been a bit of a tough place for us to get results consistently. Although we did win there last season when Ibrahimovic scored an acrobatic winner in the last 10 minutes from the edge of the 6-yard box. And we relied on the big man to do exactly the same again on Saturday night. Scored in the 92nd minute this time, but this time it was only to snatch a draw after what was, I think, without pulling any punches. It was a lethargic performance. It was lackluster. There were errors. It wasn't quick. We weren't precise. We didn't have control. It was one of our worst away performances under Pioli, I thought, and we were lucky to come away with the draw. Rant away, lads.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to take this one, Gian, because I've got...
you didn't watch?
I didn't really see the game, so I can't comment on it. I'm just looking forward to listening to everyone rant at this point.
I think Ollie was quite nice when he said it was one of the worst. I think it was our worst performance. Okay, maybe slightly. It's up between that and Sassuolo, but there was just there was nothing. There was just nothing. There wasn't even any intent. I couldn't see anything from the players. I mean, Bakayoko. No,
tough, isn't it? I mean, I didn't realise that he'd. So Bakayoko, up till this point when we're recording now, has played 307 minutes for us. He started 3 games and he's been yanked off at half time in all 3 of them. Yanked off probably not being the optimal phrase there, but he's come off at half time in all of them. And he is another one who's not up to condition. And when I say condition, it sounds vague, but I just don't know what it is. Whether he's physically not right, whether mentally he's just not got the sharpness, whether he's not got the understanding of being in a double pivot because, he's come back to Milan and we're playing a different system this time and the players around him are completely different. I don't know why people thought he would slot straight back in perfectly like he ended his last loan spell, because so much has changed since. There's basically nothing the same since the last time he was here, apart from Romagnoli behind him. And he, I don't want to say it was all on him for the goal. I think Benacer, when he makes that pass, there wasn't the option to pass out wide left to Teo, as the still will show. I'll try to get it overlaid. And he opted to go for Bakayoko, but Bakayoko, instead of continuing his sort of advance towards the ball, offering himself as an option, tries to sort of stand his ground and let it run. I thought that was quite bizarre. But then for us to lose the ball in that area was bad. But I'm just baffled that they were able to get through on goal as quickly as they did. I mean, they basically had a 2-on-1. And Beto was perhaps a bit... I highlighted him as the danger man in the preview, and I thought he was exceptional, really. But, you know, he gathered himself well after seeing the initial shot, well saved by Mignan, and fired into the roof of the net. But it was just like... I just remember thinking, that's typical for the way the last few games have gone for us.
Yeah.
I think I can't really comment on the game itself, but just touching on the Bakayoko point, I feel it's kind of a similar situation to what Mate was in last year, where he wasn't getting consistent minutes when he first started, and you know, people were writing him off after less than 500 minutes. But once he got the tactical understanding and he was playing in a double pivot, his confidence started shooting up, and the performances were a lot better. And I think that's what's going to happen with Bakayoko. I think when Kessie and Benacer eventually go off to AFCON, and you know, it's going to be Bakayoko and Tonali, I think we'll start seeing a better understanding. It's hard when you're playing with 3 different central midfielders and trying to find a partnership and understanding with them when you're not even getting 90 minutes to do that. I'm not saying that's on purely because he clearly doesn't think that. He's clearly seen him as a weak link after 45 minutes. That's why he's bringing him off. But he needs that consistency to get up to a match fitness and to get used to the side and just other things like that. So I'm hoping that when the other 2 lads go off to AFCON, we'll see the Bakayoko that we saw in his first spell.
I hope that's right. Look, I really do, and I think there is parts of that that's right. But I also think that he's a player that's been on the fringes of any team that he's been on for quite a while now. And I wasn't against this, you know, the re-signing of him. I think it made loads of sense. But I don't know, you know, but the thing is, like, you're quite right with Mate that, you know, the second half of after January, rather, he was all right. And he did the simple stuff okay, which I suppose is what we want from Bakayoko as well. But again, I think he suffers individually, forgetting he was ever at Milan. I think he's one of those players that has always suffered a little bit from a concentration lapse going into a team that is massively, clearly suffering from a mental side of things. Isn't good. But I hope you're right. I hope that he does switch on. But there really was not a lot of positivity coming from his feet that game at all.
No, and you know, Benacer is not free of criticism either after the performance that he put in. I mean, it says a lot that they were both taken off at half time, and we put Kessie Tonali out there as our comfort blanket. I think it's perhaps now time to acknowledge, although there's a limited sample size, that Bakayoko and Benacer don't work together for whatever reason. They don't seem to work together. I think Bakayoko actually started that game against Salernitana quite well. When he was the one who was pushing up. There was one chance in particular in that home game when he won the ball back and he put the ball around the defence for Brahim Diaz, who should have scored. So he should have had an assist in that particular passage, but didn't. So I think, you know, he perhaps needs a bit of protection. He needs a bit of cover. I would like to see Bakayoko Tonali. We are going to see it, you know, because of the African Cup of Nations, as mentioned. But it's vitally important that we get his cogs whirring a little bit, because otherwise we are going to look very, very short of cover going into January. And that's why I still wouldn't rule out us signing a midfielder. But I'm sure someone will ask a question about that. That was us going a goal behind. And then the equaliser, I suppose, we should mention it. Typical Zlatan, really. Right place, right time. You just can't keep him quiet. He does virtually nothing for 90 minutes. And then with our only shot on target in the game, he gets a decisive goal to get us a point. And people might, they did moan at the time, and I did. It was a poor performance, and we got away with it again. But then you see Napoli lose at home to Empoli, and you think, and you just think, don't you? You know, every team is capable of it, and that obviously makes Sunday's game particularly mouth-watering as well. But yeah, Ibra, I will say, he became the third player post 2000s to score at least 300 league goals in the top 5 leagues, and the other 2 being Messi and Ronaldo. So not bad company to join, is it? Especially considering he had a spell in America as well in amongst that. So fair play to Zlatan. You can't keep the man down. I think I'm going to read his new book. Actually, I've asked for it for Christmas, so I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to recalling some of the passages from that in future episodes. But yeah, another fantastic achievement and milestone in what has been an impressive career. And he's the only man at the moment. We need more production from the other attacking players. There's no doubt about it.
There was one real positive, though, from that game. I thought, well, not massive, but it was definitely, I think, his best performance was Florenzi. I think he was all right. You know, not great because no one was particularly great, but he actually slotted in all right in that game, and he, kind of showed what the Florenzi of reasons why we sort of signed him in the first instance, really, and the sort of qualities that we know he had at Roma in the past. So that was something. Didn't do anything, of note particularly, but he played pretty well. So that was nice to see.
We ought to mention as well the man who got the assist off the bench was Daniel Maldini.
Yeah,
winning a knockdown into a dangerous area. Yeah. That's all you need, honestly, right? I mean, I'm going to put it out there. With Brahim Diaz being so bad at the moment and offering so little, is he knocking on the door? Could he be getting a start at number 10? Particularly in games like Empoli, with no disrespect.
That he gets one. I think everyone else, when they haven't performed up to scratch, their counterpart on the bench, well, their replacement on the bench has kind of slotted in and been given a chance. You've seen it with Messias from Salamanca's, and in other areas of the picture. I'd like to see Maldini get a chance, not just because it's Paolo's son. You've got to take that away from the situation. But, he got that goal against, was it Venezia, the winner? Spezia. The winner there. And he hasn't had bad cameo appearances when he's come on, so I think it's only fair that he gets a chance, but I wouldn't necessarily do it against Napoli.
That game ages ago, doesn't it? That Spezia game. That feels like last season almost.
I was watching that on my laptop in a Premier Inn bar, and he rose and headed it in, and because I didn't have the volume, and I just jumped up and celebrated. I couldn't believe what had happened, and everyone looked at me funny. But yeah, that's a memory to stick with. But Napoli's not the game to throw him in there, I don't think. But there is certainly opportunities for him to come in and prove a point. I guess the other thing at the moment as well is that you can perhaps do some shifting around if Leao is back before the Christmas break, whereby you can play Leao on the left, you can play Messias down the middle then, and Salamanca's on the right, or you can play Messias on the right and you can play Krunich down the middle, maybe, if he's still doing well. There are other solutions before you sort of, throw a 19-year-old kid into the fray. But must say he's done all right when he's been called upon so far this season, so that's food for thought. Yeah. We'll do a top and flop, and then we shall move on to the Napoli preview. My top for this game, oh, wow, we're clutching a little bit here, aren't we? Going to have to be Ibra, isn't it? Yeah. Just because he scored. There wasn't an awful lot else, was there? There really wasn't. Can't even say that the defence had a great game, because once Udinese scored that goal in fairly early stages, they were happy to kind of sit back with 2 banks of players and make things very difficult for us, which they did. Interesting to see Samu come off the bench and at least try to do a little bit of something as well. But yeah, I'm just going to have to go with Ibra as top.
I mean, as I guess Gian didn't see the game, so I would also agree. I don't think there can be another player. As I said briefly, Florenzi was a bright spark, but he was just a spark. Didn't do anything other than that. So yeah, it only can be Ibra.
Yeah, and the flop. Plenty of choices for this one. I'm gonna play poker here and say that you're gonna go with Bakayoko, so I'm gonna go with Benacer. Just to offset it. One thing I will say about Benacer is we saw him alongside Kessie last season. The strength of the double pivot was how good Kessie was at shielding, and the more physical aspects of the game. And Benacer was really good when it came to the more vertical stuff. He was good at advancing the ball with the dribble or via quick sort of vertical passes. This season, he looks to be playing without confidence. And when we don't have that link from midfield to attack happening quickly, so we can't spring those counter-attacking situations, we look a lot worse for it. And I think that Benacer's lack of form is owing to that a little bit. So we really need him back at sort of even good form pretty quickly. And I think the best way to do that, although there's not much point with AFCON coming up, is a run of games next to Kessie. But how do you drop Tonali at the moment? He's the one who's become the leader of the midfield and the most consistent. So it's kind of like, if you want your spot back, you're going to have to show that you deserve it. But yeah, Benacer.
The only thing I wanted to add very, very, very quickly was I really do hope, it's just popped in my mind, Bakayoko does continue, hopefully does kick on, because he's got such a good song. The GG.
Yeah, that's true.
That alone, I could sing that all day. So come on.
Yeah, that's good. And that's it. Another very forgettable evening in Udinese, we should say. And I will mention, because I did mention him earlier, Beto looks like a good player. He's now level with Ibra again on 7 goals for the season. He's actually on loan with an obligation to buy from Portimonense in Portugal. So might be a bit difficult if we were to go after him next summer. But there was a report saying that we liked what we saw from him, because obviously we do want to inject a bit of youth into the forward department. And he looked quite mobile, but quite big and sort of like a bully at the same time. And I liked that. So he's maybe one to keep an eye on. If we're going for a kind of Scamacca mold like that, where they can play up front on their own, no problems, then let's see how he develops. I think he's only 23. So who knows? There might be something there. Napoli preview. So this is the, I'm not going to say the biggest home game of the season so far, because we have had Inter. But this is big because both teams need the win in this, really. Napoli, I'm not going to say that they've stuttered and faltered and stuff, because they have been performing probably at a level above most people thought that they would be for the entirety of the season. Spalletti's done a fantastic job there. He's got everyone firing. They've been a bit unlucky with injuries recently as well. They kind of lost Anguissa for a bit. They lost Koulibaly for a little bit. Osimhen obviously was a big blow with his facial fracture. They've even had scares with Lozano, and Zielinski came off in the last game with a respiratory problem. So that was a one that you don't normally hear, and obviously we hope that he's all well and everything. And they come into this game on the back of a 1-0 defeat against Udinese, which I believe is their first at home all season. No, it isn't, of course, because they lost to Atalanta the week before that. So they're coming into this game actually on the back of 2 defeats, which has seen them drop from 1st to 4th. They're now 4th in the table, and that's kind of mad to think about, given that they were the pace setters for so long. What do we think? Is this what happens normally with the Spalletti side? Are we going to start to see them tailspin a little bit now? Or were you not surprised to see them up there fighting for the title? Like, where do we judge Napoli?
I were surprised to see them up there fighting for the title, but it's no surprise that they're, dropping off now. I didn't even have Napoli this season in my prediction finishing inside the top 7, let alone fighting for the Scudetto. I didn't think that it was going to be there, and now they are dropping off. And I think when they lose 2 or 3 of the key players to AFCON in January, we're going to see an even bigger drop off. So I think this is a game now where we can't really afford to drop points in, because we need to get that distance away from them and really keep up with Inter, who have got a hard run coming up themselves. So it's a massive game, but I don't think a draw is good enough. It has to be 3 points.
One thing about Napoli, they won 10 of their first 11 games to start the season. Their draw being a 0-0 with Roma. That's the only one they didn't win. They've won 1 of their last 6, and that includes defeats against Inter, Atalanta, and obviously Empoli. So has that kind of shown that they are due a drop-off now and that it's come?
I think their injuries have been just like ours, but you could argue probably worse, just from the point of view of the real informed players were the ones that have kind of had to take a long trip to the medical room, if you will, especially Osimhen. But I never had them like you, Gian. Never had them anywhere near winning it. Only just top 4, if a push. I think Spalletti had a really good system with the players he had for the first sort of 10 games. It was brilliant. They had really good pressing. It was dynamic. They were fast. Osimhen was just really, Osimhen even, sorry, he was really, really firing. But I don't see us. I don't see us losing this game. That's the thing. I don't know if we'll win it. That's what I'm thinking. I don't see us losing it, but like you both said, we need to win it. But I don't think we're going to lose the game. So probably a draw. But we need the win. We really need.
I think
if there was ever a game to just shut up all the critics, get your confidence back, this is this one where you just take the game by the scruff of its neck and you just go for it. When we go 1-0 up, we don't start to sit back and get complacent. We go for the 2 and then hopefully. That's just the way that I want to see this game going, because we're more than capable of scoring 2 or 3 goals every game. And with a few players creeping back, it's going to be nice to be able to hopefully bring Leao on with 20 to go and inject a load of pace into it. Having Giroud back as an alternative to Ibra is going to. I think this game's kind of set up now for us to get our season back on track, and a convincing win. There'll be a shift in mentality and hopefully get everything back.
Is Leao going to be back? Definitely.
It's touch and go at the moment. Touch and go at the moment. We'll see. But I mean, you've got to think if there's a possibility that he can even give us 20 minutes, then that would be huge. It would be massive off the bench, definitely, to run at sort of time inside. I mean, Napoli obviously they played on Thursday night prior, and that was in a must-win game for them in the Europa League to qualify, and their reward for finishing second in their group with Leicester and Warsaw and Spartak Moscow is Barcelona. So there's another one that shows the Europa League. But then they rotated against Empoli. There were Ospina in goal, but Di Lorenzo, Rahmani, Juan Jesus, Mario Rui, Diego Demi, Unas, Elmas started. I'm not saying anything about Mertens because he always seems to score against us. But we did see they beat Lazio 4-0. Relatively recently, and that was where
I don't think that's that impressive, especially not this season. To be honest with you,
no, I think they're going to have Insigne is going to be back for this one. Mertens will start. We'll see about the others that recover. I think they've got a couple of uncertain injury situations as well. Our lineup kind of picks itself at the moment, to be honest. I think Kalulu probably comes back into the back 4. That would be my initial guess, but I can't rule out the idea of Florenzi starting again. Then you've got to have Kessie Tonali in there, definitely. The attack is an interesting one. We've got to presume that Leao's not fit enough to start. And obviously Rebic will be out until 2022, so it might be a case of Krunich keeping that spot on the left side. And then do we play someone different down the middle? Do we play Messias on the right? And then Ibra probably has to start up front, given it we'll have had a week off. 2 days rest have been given to the squad. They're back in training on Wednesday. So Pioli's decided to give him a little bit of a physical and mental break. And I guess we won't know until Sunday whether that's done them any good or not. But I think while we have the opportunity to do it, I think we've got to see how they respond to it. But before a big game, if it doesn't work.
Yeah, just because we're so close to the end of the end of before Christmas, I think it should be a push. They should be think about earning that break properly and then completely relaxing, chilling out as they deserve to do. But this is a big game, I don't know if I'm hoping they won't take both days. You see some of the players, they just decide to come in training anyway, don't they? So my hope is they maybe have one day and then hopefully a few of them pop up and try and stay sharp. We'll see.
I actually hope that they take both days rest. I'm not saying they necessarily deserved it from a performance view, but definitely from the mental side. They probably need a good break, spend it with family, spend it with friends, just relax, keep your mind focused on the game by all means, but just so there's not that demand, and let players properly regroup, and hopefully we'll have a fitter squad in time for the game instead of just working them just because of being playing bad, because that won't do them any good because they'll be mentally tired. So I'm kind of happy that they've got 2 days off, and I hope they take the 2 days off and not try be these mental heroes that come back and show the grit and stuff. We saw that a bit last year, and I think that kind of cost us where every rest day they were always in, and then we picked up injury after injury again last year. I just wanted them to take the time.
And if that is the actual, concrete advice, please stay at home, then I hope the players will do it. Workloads are a big thing, but then, there's already been players that are working to get back to 100%. So I think we'll wait for news later in the week about whether Leao will be back for the game, for example. Last thing to do is a score prediction then. I think there's a lot on the line for both teams here. And I don't like predicting draws because I think it's kind of hedging bets a little bit. But I feel like it's a must not lose for both teams, really. It'd be pretty damaging, giving in to have Salernitana, so we can't expect them to drop any points. I think both teams will kind of go for this and say, let's make a statement, penultimate game before the break. I'm going to say a 2-2 draw. I'm not confident to pick a win.
I actually don't think this is as much of a must-win game now that I've just thought about it for Napoli as it is from Milan, because they were never really picked to be fighting for the Scudetto, and even if they drop points, they're still firmly in the top four. Whereas for us, we haven't got an excuse not to, like I said, win the Scudetto now. Everyone's been cheering that we're out of the Champions League, we're out of Europe, so we can have this rest and stuff, and this mental break and stuff like that, and get plenty of rest. But it is a must-win game for us, and we can't afford to mess it up.
And that's why you're going to predict...
That is right. Sorry, I forgot about the prediction. I'm going to predict 2-1 to us. And I'm going to be brave here and get some hate. And I'm going to say Salamakers and Diaz to score.
Oh, man.
I'd love that. That would be a great prediction, because mine is more on, as I mentioned before, I just don't think... I don't see us losing this game at all. I don't think we will lose this game, but I just don't know if we've got the kahunas at the moment to kind of go across the line and get the win. So I'm also going to go for a draw. I was going to say 2-2, but for difference, I'll say 1-1. Just from a prediction point of view. But if I was going to say scorers, I actually think a Messias brace, that would be beautiful. That would be my bold prediction. I think he's a really good little signing that we've got there. So
let's hope John's right.
Definitely.
I've just seen a graphic which I'm going to mention just totally randomly, but Inter's first 8 games that they've got in 2022 is Bologna, then Lazio, Juve, Atalanta, then Venezia, then Milan, Napoli, Liverpool.
Oof.
So they've got 6 of the first 8 there that are real ball busters. You would hope. So let's see what you're made of, lads. That's what I say. Right, listener questions. We'll pick out a couple because I've seen the time. Alessandra, I'm picking this out because it's the first one that I saw. I think this is a bit tongue-in-cheek, but why do people hate Krunich so much? I certainly don't hate him. I think there have certainly been times when I've doubted his usefulness to the project, given that he hasn't nailed down a position as such. Age-wise, he's a bit more advanced than some of the others, but he's always shown commitment. He's always got his head down. He's always played wherever has been asked of him. He's had a couple of disasters along the way, but who hasn't? Some more established first-team performers have had worse performances than him during his time here. I think he's a good little versatility man, What the future holds for him, I don't know. When you've got someone like Pobega who can come back and play sort of similar roles, deeper, more advanced midfield role, I don't know what the future holds for him, but I'm certainly not a hater of his.
I agree, especially he is just your Mr. Utility man, and I don't know what people expected when we signed him from a relegated side into Serie B. He kind of had some unrealistic high expectations, especially his first season. It felt like people just expected something that he's never going to bring to the table. He's just good there as depth, and especially with our injuries, you could probably say to him, rather do as a job in net, and he'd happily go in, and there wouldn't be a fuss. And it's nice to have them players in your side and who were willing to give all for the club. I'm not his biggest fan. I can't envisage him being here in the next 3 years, maybe, because I think the squad will have evolved. But I don't hate him. I think people that just hate him expect every single player on the pitch to score 4 goals a game and get 5 assists a game, week in, week out. And that's the unrealistic expectation there. And they just expect far too much from someone that has never given them top quality performances in his career.
Yeah, I think I'll echo what the boys have said as well. Really, that he's ultimately a jack of all trades and master of none. That is Krunich, and I think we're so used to having players in sort of the history of Milan that are specialists and are so good at one thing or a couple of things and they stand out all the time. And Krunich isn't like that, but he, I also was not his biggest fan, and the last couple of years he's very much won me over because he is incredibly useful. He works extremely hard, and yeah, I think I probably wasn't a fan, and I probably have slowly become a little bit of a fan as time's gone on. But no, definitely, I don't think we're none of us are haters. That's for sure. I think he's all right.
Question here from Wally. I must say congratulations to him on winning the giveaway, and thank you to everybody who entered that. He got the signed Tonali shirt.
Rigged, sorry.
Yeah, it was rigged. We got a lot of that, man. That was funny. Yeah, like if I wanted to get Wally a signed shirt, like I wouldn't just buy it for him myself and send it.
If we were gonna rig a competition, then you just create a fake Twitter account, enter it, and pick that Twitter account out and send it to yourself. So.
More outrage for that than there was for the UEFA draw earlier today.
Yeah, and for the F1. I'm a big go-karting fan, but but yeah. Also, even if we did rig it, the no more deserving winners than a guy who's been following us since day one and has always been appreciative of our work. So congrats to Wally anyway. He says this is for January. Would you bring Caldara back, but have enough money to buy Julian Alvarez and Roman Fava? Or would you get Fava and Christensen from Chelsea and lose Alvarez to Inter? So there's a lot of ramifications there. But I guess it's essentially go for a good centre-back and a good attacking reinforcement, or do we go for the cheap option on the centre-back and have a bit more money to spend in other positions?
I personally think the centre-back is the priority going into January now that we've lost Kier. I feel like he's going to be one of them players that's not going to come back to anywhere near his best once he recovers from his injuries. That's obviously just speculation, but I just feel like it's going to seriously hinder his game. And we do need a long-term partner for Tomori because we've got to assume that Tomori's going to be here for the rest of his career like you would any other player. So I think that's the key signing for the centre-back. I'm not saying our attack is brilliant, but when that attack is fully fit, there is no need to add to it this season. We've only been left in one competition. There's more than enough quality up there to make a charge for that title. So I think the centre-back's a priority, followed by a central midfielder. Because I think we have got to assume that Kessie's going to leave and we can't go in, 4 to 5 weeks with just Tonali and Bakayoko. We do need a fifth choice there.
Right, I'm going to cut out a load of questions at once here and just say to both of you, who would your picks be for centre-back, central midfielder, and for a forward to come in next summer? Who do you think the realistic targets and the guys that we should go for? While you think, I'll say I think that Botman seems to be the guy now for centre-back. I think Lille are a bit in the shit. Their title defence isn't going well. Yes, they got through to the Champions League knockouts, but your reward is that you've got Chelsea, so that's probably then done. They're sort of languishing in mid-table in Liga. We've got great relations with them. We've concluded various deals with them in the past. He could come in and be tomorrow's long-term partner. I really think that. He's 21 years of age. He's a Dutch international when he's playing alongside Van Dijk. He's been fantastic. He's been linked with the likes of Liverpool and Real Madrid for a reason. And that's at that age. And I think it would be another wise bit of business if we could snap him up. I think if we're talking about bringing forward an investment in a player for the future, then Botman is that ideal candidate. But I also, my one reservation about, say, Christensen is that they're playing in a back three at the moment, where I think that Tuchel's back threes are pretty shielded. So I just don't know how that would go. However, we've got the I don't know, the added advantage of him being on an expiring contract and other factors that come into it. It sounds like he's going to renew anyway. But yeah, I'm going Botman, long story short.
Centre back for me, I'd love Botman. I just don't see us making that big of an investment in January, even though we should. I don't think it's going to be that big. If they do, it's a brilliant statement from Elliott, and I think that should shut up a lot of doubters. The worrying bit there would probably be who are we going to sell to afford it. But I think Bremer from Torino, I think that's more of a stopgap, but I wouldn't mind him. Or Christensen, I do really like him. I think he's had a good spell at Chelsea, and it's easy for him to slit in with Tomori than just being an ex-teammate. So yeah, either one of them three, Botman the dream, but I just don't see it happening.
I think we're all missing a very obvious one, guys. It's obviously Rudiger. Come on. I don't know. Sorry,
on his 400 grand a week or whatever he wants.
I can't believe, we're obviously a huge club and we could, but I mean the wages. I mean, come on, I couldn't believe that the people were like, Bayern Munich are going to be pipped to the post by Milan to pay Rudiger's wages. Like, not going to happen. So, I'm also would be Botman would be the favourite. I mean, as you both said, for relations of Lille, he's brilliant, and he's got all the characteristics that I think we're kind of looking for a partner of Tomori. I do think, however, I have a theory that if they stay up, I think he'll go to Newcastle in the Premier League. I can just see that happening if they stay up. That is. Otherwise, Bremer would be fine. Christensen, I'm not so sure about. Just because I'm always unsure about taking, I said Premier League, I mean Tomori, obviously, but he was different. He was out of favour. The money, I don't know. I would take him. I think, I agree. Any of them, Botman being the dream.
Central midfielder, I'm going based on the double pivot here and who can play sort of the more defensive midfielder role. I still like Boubacar Kamara. I think that would be a smart signing. I'm thinking here of deals that we could rush through in January rather than waiting for next summer when we'll probably have the bodies there anyway with the likes of Adley, and we've got Pobega returning. Even if Kessie leaves, would be okay for numbers. Someone that could come in January and provide immediate cover and probably not cost too much. I like Kamara. Athletic are saying that he's not renewing his deal with Marseille, so they'll probably cut their losses and sell for a lower fee in January. I also like Dennis Zakaria from Mönchengladbach. I think he'd be a really, really good fit as well. He's used to shielding the back four, plays in a double pivot there, and we know what the Bundesliga is like in terms of an intense style of play. So I think he'd be a good scalp as well. His contract expires in June 2022. I'll give the nod to Zakaria just because he's got a bit more Champions League experience.
I'd just say potentially just bring Adley back so we can make the investments more in positions that are a bit more needed, like the centre-back. And I know I said attack could probably wait, but if you bring someone like Adley back, then you can make that investment up front. I think that's just a straightforward choice for me. If it's possible, bring him back. If not, I don't really know. I can't see Marseille wanting to let Kamara go. I think you just leave him. He's going to be one of them that they'll just be like, we'll keep you for 6 months so we can get climb the league and table as high as we can. So Adley for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kamara is a no-brainer. Although, thinking about it, why would Marseille get rid of him? But I really think it is a golden opportunity. We would be able to get him in the summer, but so will loads of other clubs be queuing up for him, and he'll choose. Whereas I think he is a really good replacement for Kessie. I think that for me, I would be really annoyed a little bit. I'd understand why, because Marseille have the cards, selling him or not, but I'd be really annoyed if we didn't make a real effort to try and get Kamara in for a small fee.
One thing I will mention at this point is that Fabrizio Romano said with the Christensen thing that Milan have sort of reached out to Chelsea and said, we're willing to pay for him in January. So they don't lose him for free. So that makes me think, have we got a strategy where that was today, or yesterday that he said it. But it looks like he's going to renew. But that makes me wonder, as a general strategy, if we are willing to put a bit of money on the table for players with expiring contracts just to beat the competition. And if we might do that for Kamara, say here's 5 million, you're going to get nothing in the summer, so good luck. And whether we might then accept bids for Kessie if they come in. as if to say, well, some money's better than nothing. I think it's unlikely, but I just thought it was interesting that we're willing to pay for a player rather than get him on a free. Attack, I still like Julian Alvarez. I've mentioned it so many times, but he seems to be a big game player, scored in big games for River Plate already. Young Argentina international, prolific, can play in behind the striker, can play up front, can play on the wing if needed as well. Really like him. So I'll go for him as probably it sounds like he's got a 20 mil release clause, so that'd be one for the summer maybe, but what a way to inject some sort of direct technical ability to the forward department.
I think for me, because we do have a similar way that we play, like Liverpool do with the press, I think Origi is a perfect player that just slots straight.
We've been linked
into...
today. We've been linked with him today.
Great suggestion.
Yeah, he's just that player that you can put straight in there, and he's kind of more like a polished Rebic in terms of when he plays up front. The pressing's there, the finishing's a lot better. I'm not saying Rebic isn't a good finisher, but one day he can put it in the top corner like he did against Juve, and then the other day he'll put it in the top tier of the Gruva Sud. So I would love Origi. The Vlahovic trait has gone. I don't see us getting on that. Scamacca, I was impressed with him against us, but I still don't. He's got that Italian strike attacks on him. I just don't trust him one bit anymore. We've seen too many good young Italian strikers just flop after a couple of good seasons. So yeah, for me, I'd try and make a serious punt at Origi and maybe just swap him with Kessie. 2 expiring contracts. Liverpool want Kessie, we want Origi. Do it, and it's.
I think Origi would come with Klopp's blessing as well.
Yeah.
Klopp had some really nice things to say about our project, about San Siro, about Pioli, and everything. And I think that he also said things in the past about Origi, as if to say, we know there's going to be a time that comes when he wants to play more, where he wants to be a starter somewhere. And honestly, he would lead our line next season without a doubt.
Absolutely. I think he's such a good age as well, 26. I think he's got winner's experience. I think you're right about Julian Alvarez, in terms of young potential. But I mean, Origi's literally won them trophies. He's actually won them himself. And I agree with you. I think he's brilliant. I would love Origi. As soon as you said that, I was like, yep. That's the one.
People, there's like a thing of, should we go for Belotti if he's available on a free versus should we go for Origi? I mean, I guess the difference is wages. Origi will be on a pretty high wage at Liverpool, no doubt. But I think he'd fancy it. I really do think he'd fancy it. He's a Belgian teammate with Salamakers, of course. There are things there that we could maybe exploit, and I would like to see that happen. And as I say, I think he'd come with Liverpool's blessing, to be honest with you. I'll ask one more question because it's an interesting one, and I'd kick myself if I didn't ask it. Bilal Hussein asks, would you look to a top-flight manager at the end of the season and invest big if we remain trophyless with Pioli? We get asked this probably once a month, and I just wanted to see what the mood is, given that obviously we've been knocked out of the Champions League group stages. Perhaps we've shown a few limitations in our game due to fatigue, due to injuries, of course, as well. Is Pioli the man long-term still? Do we think medium-term? Do we think that, there's going to come a time like maybe Klopp's available in a couple of years and we've just got to get on that if he wants it? Or where do we stand?
I think for me, not the only upgrade, I don't know how to phrase this without getting absolutely hounded in the comment section.
I'm clipping this already, mate.
Yeah.
But Klopp is the only perfect upgrade to Pioli. The one that really does take it to the next level in terms of the team's already set up for him to come in and just with a couple of signings implement his style of play because it's already kind of there. There's a base for it there. Of course, you could get Conte who would come in and win us a trophy. I'm not saying that, but I just think without a massive overhaul needed players-wise and system-wise, I think Klopp's the only perfect real upgrade for Pioli there. And I do see that happening. I said to Ollie and the rest of you, I think that's Klopp's next destination. I do think it's Milan. Regardless of what he's had good to say just in the last couple of weeks about us, he's talked about how Arrigo Sacchi is his idol. He's mentioned before that he does want to manage in Italy. I know they were at that point where he was learning Italian with the links for Juve. I think that's the right one. But I also think Pioli deserves a full season, injury-free, or something that any other
Yeah.
clubs had apart from us, where we're in December and there's already been 40 injuries in the team. That isn't fair. And to still have us challenging for the Scudetto at that point, with all the injuries he's had since he's got here, I think even if we did finish this season trophyless, he still deserves one more to do well with this team and hopefully be backed a bit better by the management. I don't think they've been horrendous towards him, but there has been key positions that needed filling that we have kind of fumbled on a little bit, I'd say. So, yeah, not yet. I think even a trophyless season, unless it completely derails and we don't get Champions League, he deserves another year.
Yeah, the idea of Klopp at Milan is honestly making me quite hot at the collar. Like that would be unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, I'm not as hopeful or as thinking that's going to happen as Gian is, but yeah, that would be amazing. I think Pioli deserves some more time. I was also probably a couple of months ago one of those people that messaged in to actually ask that question. I think I've spoken to you about it in length as well, Ollie. But I think he's earned it. I think Pioli has shown he is a good manager. Yeah, if I was to put a time length on it, I think medium. He's definitely not short term. I don't think he is a long term manager. I don't see him being at Milan 3, 4, 5 years from now. No, but I think 1 to 2 to 3 years. Yeah, I think he's fine. I think he's good.
I think a lot of it will depend on what Elliot's ambitions are as well, because what we've heard about a lot from the management, Maldini in particular, is that we're in an intermediary period where we need to acknowledge it's going to take a bit of time to start competing with the elite again. And what it takes is consecutive years being in the Champions League. Then it's like you give a bit more money to the project in general because we're earning more money. Maldini's able to shop in a bit of a higher level than what he was before. Pioli's working with better players. We've got better depth. And he absolutely deserves to be given that time. One thing I will say is the landscape of football changes so quickly. Going into sort of the last summer, Conte was absolutely the right man for Inter at that point. He just won them the Scudetto. He'd sort of got what he wanted, but then that project just fell apart. It fell away, and he left. And I would say the same thing about Pioli. He's the right man for right now, but we don't know what's going to come. One thing that will be a big test is if we go through a real glut in results and performances. And I'm not just talking, we fail to win 2 out of 3 games or something. I'm talking, we lose a stretch of games. Just how much patience everybody has. But I hope that we don't have that to find out, obviously. On the Klopp thing, I love it. I don't like the bloke, to be honest. I think he's quite... I love the way that his teams play, but I think he's quite a moaning kind of bloke. It's always in December that he starts complaining about the fixtures.
You love it if he was moaning on our side, though.
Well,
Ollie.
maybe that's true. Maybe that's my anti-Liverpool sentiment coming through a little bit there as well. But and yeah, he would absolutely be a good fit for us here because the foundations have been laid with our playing style and our recruitment and stuff. And I think he would come in and enact top to bottom change, and I think that's huge because you look at our Primavera, they're absolute shit. They don't have a style of play. They're not good at getting results. They're getting beaten by like Sassuolo's academy and stuff, and it's bad that we've got to this position for one of the most famous and most traditional academies in the country. But I think he would come in and say, that's not good enough. I want them playing the way that I play. You look at for example, some of the lads that were playing for Liverpool, Tyler Morton, who played at the base in the midfield, and he just looked like he'd been starting every game for them in the Champions League. That's because he was coached into a seamless transition into the first team, and I worry that we are not going to get that with some of these players that might get thrown in. There's talk of Nasty being called up for the game against Napoli, who scored 5 in 9, I think it is, for the Primavera this season. Luca Nasty. Just apathetic towards it. Like, I just don't think the poor kid has a chance of coming in and making a big impact. I'd love to see another Cutrone style explosion onto the scene, but when the team if they were top of the league in the Primavera, you think, yeah, they're flying high with confidence. Get them in there. Let's see what they can do. But nothing about it really inspires confidence in me at the moment, and that's not how an academy should be. It should be a conveyor belt of talent. And I think if we were to get a Klopp or even like not a Ranić, but like, I don't know, that mold of those who come in as like a managing director and say, no, we're doing it that way all the way up to the top now. that could be beneficial for us from an organisational point of view. But no, interesting. I'm going to end it there because we're like an hour and 20. This might be our longest episode ever, but that's what happens, I suppose. Never a dull day, is there? But yeah, in the meantime, thank you very much if you made it this far. I hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll be back next week to review the Napoli game, obviously, and preview the Empoli game, and then we'll go into a Christmas break. I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. You can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher. Gian, thank you for joining.
Yeah, pleasure to be back, and hopefully it'll become more regular again as we head into New Year.
Lorenzo, fantastic debut, 10 out of 10 in the podcast. I don't know, host, player ratings, whatever. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, no, it was a real pleasure, and I hope you guys enjoyed listening. And I hope to be listening in next week of some wins. So come on, man, let's go.
Let's have it. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. And I'm wearing the merch at the moment. It's a bit faded, that actually. I need to get a new one. Check out our merchandise store if you haven't already as well. Still should be shipping in time for Christmas. That'd be a good present for the Milan fan in your life, or a gift to yourself. But yeah, thank you for watching, everybody, and we will catch you in a week's time.
Eccolo Ante in area di rigore, Ante, Ibra, gol! Vediamo se è buono, ce lo dà buono, ce lo dà buono, ce lo dà buono!